I was there for number one.
I've always been proud of how you never back down.
First-year head coach for the Irish, Muffet McGraw gets her first win on the road against Loyola Chicago.
Notre Dame is headed to the Final Four for the first time in their history.
Douglas at the buzzer. Didn't get it. Here comes Diggins on the fly. Notre Dame has beaten Connecticut, and they knocked the Huskies in the number one spot.
We don't have enough female role models. We don't have enough women in power. Somebody's got to pick up the mantle. And if it's just a one small voice in South Bend, Indiana, to get people thinking, I'm happy to be the spark.
Congratulations, Muffet.
We can't wait to see what you do next.
Good afternoon and welcome. I'm here with Coach Muffet McGraw, her husband Matt, and the James E. Rohr Director of Athletics, Jack Swarbrick. For all the media at home, please use the webinar Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get your questions answered quickly in the next half an hour with Coach and Jack. Coach, would you like to begin with an opening statement?
It has been my great honor to represent the University of Notre Dame these past 33 years, but the time has come for me to step down as your head coach. I want to thank Monk Malloy and Father Jenkins for giving me the opportunity to coach the game I love at a university I love. I've learned much about leadership from the many athletic directors with whom I have served, and in particular, I want to thank Jack Swarbrick for his unwavering support. I'm grateful to have worked with the best assistant coaches in the business, and I have been blessed to coach so many phenomenal women. To the best fans in the country, it was my honor and privilege to play for you. Matt and I want to thank everyone who has touched our lives and shared a part of our amazing journey, and we will treasure the memories for the rest of our lives.
Jack, you have an opening statement?
Thanks, Coach. If you want to start a lively debate online or the next time we're allowed to be in a watering hole, ask somebody who their Mount Rushmore is of anything. Best athletes, best whatever. You can't have a discussion about the Mount Rushmore of Notre Dame coaches and not have Muffet McGraw on that list. She has contributed more to this school, this university, and its athletes than anyone. We will miss her tremendously. We will miss the influence she's had on all of us, but we also honor this as a time to celebrate Coach McGraw. I've had a little time to prepare for this. She and I have talked over time about when she might choose to step down, but I really knew this day was coming a little more than a year ago, April 4th to be exact, when Muffet gave a press conference in Tampa, where she talked about her passion for female leadership and creating role models that young women could look to aspire to more in their futures. Muffet McGraw has been that role model, and the platform she created that day is a platform she can now take greater advantage of with some time away from coaching. Fortunately, she leaves behind an incredibly strong program with talented student athletes and coaches in the best possible condition. But perhaps the greatest legacy is she leaves behind a successor who she groomed, who she recruited to come to Notre Dame, who led the team to a national championship as its point guard, and has had great success as an assistant coach with us. So as we honor Coach McGraw and say goodbye to her, we welcome Niele Ivey as our new coach. Aaron?
Thanks, Jack. First question, Coach. Eric Hansen, the South Bend Tribune asks, why now?
Hey, Eric, well, that's a great question. And although I have a long-term contract, I think every year, really since the championship year, I have looked and said, let's take one more year. Let's take it 1 year at a time. And looking ahead, I'm always excited about the next season. So this year, at the end of the season, once again, I looked at it as I did last year with 5 players going off to the draft. I think a lot of people thought maybe this is the year that she should retire. But when I looked ahead to what we had coming back, I knew that it was going to be a challenging season. And I thought, where's the honor in that if I leave now? So I really wasn't ready anyway. So I put in for 1 more year. And now looking ahead to know we have a great recruiting class coming in. We're ranked in the top 25 in the preseason poll, and I think the program is right back where it should be and poised to make another run to the Final Four. So I feel like I'm leaving the program in a good place, and also a chance for me to do something else, turn the page, write a new chapter, and look at doing something else.
Great. Jack, question from Chuck Freeby from WHME. Could you lay out the timeline behind Coach coming to you and Niele being hired?
Well, as Coach suggested, we had an annual conversation that's gone on for a while about how do you see the future, what are you thinking? My job was to try and convince her to stay every year, and I'm proud that I did a pretty good job, as long as I possibly could. But it was a reflective conversation, and at the end of this year, when we had that conversation, she felt it was time. And so we had talked to Niele about the possibility of this happening, and so we were able to move pretty rapidly once Coach made her decision.
Great. Coach, Pete Byrne, WSBT. What's the best memory you have at Notre Dame?
I have so many amazing memories, and you know, it's all about the place and the people that make it so special. But for me, winning that championship in Columbus and then seeing all those alums, I mean, there must have been 40 women out on the stage just celebrating with each other, whether they graduated in 1990 or 2009, they were all together. And seeing all those alums share in that moment, that was one of my favorite memories.
Great. Jack, you've been quoted in the past that you ask yourself one main question going into any head coaching search. And the question is, what does that program need right now? How did you answer that in this search?
Continuity. This program is in such a great position. And it's not just the competitive success, although 936 wins and 2 national championships and on and on and on. It's what the program does, contributes to the institution, and the impact it has on the young women that Muffet has educated. And it's where we want the program to be. And so finding someone who understood it, who we thought had the ability to build on what we have, led us to where we are. But that was the number one factor.
Great. Doug Feinberg, this is for you, Coach. Doug Feinberg from the Associated Press asked, what's in store for your future? Is this a retirement from coaching or from Notre Dame?
This is a retirement from coaching only. I plan to be around and help Jack with some special projects as he would have me serve a little bit more. I am excited about the opportunity to continue to promote women's equality and to speak on behalf of all women anywhere across the country and to use my platform in any way that I can. I'd like to get more involved in community work. I find that I've turned into a real activist, and I'm really enjoying that right now. So I hope a lot of things in store, and definitely a different page than I've been on.
Jack, what do you look to use Coach for in the future at Notre Dame?
Yeah, well, the first thing is I'm angling to be the booking agent for the speaking tour. But beyond that, there are 3 things we're really focused on, and keeping Muffet closely aligned to Notre Dame athletics in this university is a number 1 priority for me. The first is education. This is a great teacher, and we want to create platforms for her to teach. We have some specific ideas about programs which are being developed at the university where I think she could play a very important role. The second is we want her to help our coaches. What better person to help especially nurture younger coaches in their development than Muffet. And then third, we'd like her to continue to represent the university publicly and help talk about this place and what it's meant to her.
So this is Mike Berardino from Chicago Sun-Times, Coach. How did this period of distancing and the uncertainty that lies ahead factor into your decision to step away right now?
Well, actually, it was a big part of it. I think, you know, you don't want to make a big decision like this coming off of a season, whether it's a high or a low point for you. So you want to give it some time to reflect. And this was a great opportunity for me to sit back and see what's life without basketball going to look like. And I thought it looked really good. I felt really good about the solitude, and I think people were wondering, was I climbing the walls? What was I doing at home? Was I driving Matt crazy? You know, we've really enjoyed this time, and it gave me a great chance to reflect and see what's really important. You know, obviously, things like this happen, and you know tomorrow is promised to no one. What is your life going to look like down the road? And we want to continue to enjoy it. So I'm excited about knowing that I can handle not having basketball in my life.
Aaron, if I may, one of one of the most interesting challenges for us as we worked our way through the timing here was the really strong desire to be with our student athletes when we communicated this. And so we kept hoping there'd be an opportunity to do that, kept trying to see if we could manufacture one, and finally realized that as long as this was going, it was going to have to be a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, it went really well. So let's talk about that Zoom meeting. How did I know you had one with the alumni this morning or this afternoon, and with the student athletes. How did that go?
Well, we had a great call with the alums, and they are such a big part of our program. Just so many phenomenal women, and I was excited that so many could get on the call. And we had a chance to talk with them, just to give them the information, so they were hearing it first from us, and also introducing Niele as the next coach, which they were thrilled about. So it went really well. It was great to share that moment with them, and I've gotten so many texts and things from so many people. The team meeting was a little more emotional, obviously leaving at this point. It's always difficult. Like I said, there's never a good time. So, but it was great that we were able to make that transition immediately, so they had a moment of maybe a little anxiety, and then immediately looking at what Niele was going to bring, and they were thrilled about that.
Michelle Volpel from ESPNW says, "You've always had a strong voice, but when did you realize how important your voice could be for not only women in leadership everywhere, but outside of basketball?"
Well, thanks, Michelle. I think last year at the Final Four, I was a little amazed that my speech just kept on going. I don't really know where it started coming from, but it was something that I think I needed to get out, and I was really happy with the response across the country from women in every single profession. I've heard from so many men with daughters and so many people that it really was an important thing for people to hear, and I've tried to build on that and really talk about that in all the speaking engagements that I've had since then, just to talk about women's empowerment, what we can do to help women lead. We need so many more women leaders in our country. We need women to have positions of power, and what better way to start that than in sports? And now that I'm transitioning over, I hope I can continue that in every facet.
Howard Megdal from High Post Hoops has a question about running for office, and I know you've demurred from that in the past. Now that you aren't coaching, is running for office something you consider, or something in an activist role?
I would definitely am an activist. I'm very involved in the community and want to get even more involved, but I think I'm a little too honest for politics.
One of my favorite texts I've received this afternoon was from a friend who texted, "I hope Biden is paying attention." the perfect vice presidential candidate.
So Angelo DiCarlo from Redeemer Radio, Coach, back to you on a lot of the great work you've done in the community. He asks, Coach, how many food drives do you think you will now be able to hold in retirement?
Well, I'm doing them weekly. I got my 5th one on Friday, and I've already got one planned for next week too. So looking forward to that. I think it's so important that we all get involved in our community. There's so many people in need, and especially at times like this when you have no idea what your neighbor really needs and how we can help them. And if you don't get out and ask and be involved, you're never going to know. So I think it's so important that we all take that stand.
It's great. Jack, what is the one thing that you have learned from a coach during your time here as the athletics director at Notre Dame?
Be on time. The bus leaves without you. You know, seriously, I've learned the power of focus. Muffet has such an intensity about her toward whatever the goal is. And nothing deters her, nothing takes her off track. I'm sort of the opposite, and she has really helped me in that regard to say, this is what's important today. This is what we have to accomplish at practice, or this is what we have to do to win this game, or this is what we have to do to win a national championship, and staying focused on it.
It's great. So Denise Swarkan from Irish Illustrated asks, you've said so many times after a game that might have not gone your way, you'd like to being able to come back and work on fixing those things that went wrong. So how hard is that going to be now that you can't come back and fix some of the lessons you learned from last season?
We had a lot of opportunity to fix things during the season last year. And, you know, it's really, that's just part of my nature. I think that's the way I am. I look at everything like that in my life. This is going wrong right now. I need to turn around and fix it. But, you know, I'm happy with where I've left things. I think that when I look back on my career, I'm going to have no regrets. And I think that's important. You hate to lose, and you hate to leave it on a bad note. I wish the season maybe would have ended the game before. But, you know, Matt and I talked that we're just going to pretend that 2018 was our last year.
So that's great. So this is a great transition here a little bit. Coach, what role has Matt and Murph played in who you have became as head coach? This is from Eric Hansen from the South Bend Tribune.
Well, I'll tell you, in a job like this, there's absolutely no way you can do it without a great partner. And that is something that I have been so blessed to have Matt by my side through this entire process, all these years. And with him by my side, I feel like I've been able to do so much more. When Murph came along, we had to make some decisions, and Matt decided he would change jobs, he'd work out of the house, he'd always be there for Murph. And it was so many lessons in that, but Murph got to see our partnership and how much of a team we were. And you also got to know that men actually can cook and do laundry. And he learned a lot of good things about changing stereotypes. And he has grown into a phenomenal man. I'm so proud of the man that he has become. And I think it's because he's been able to watch what Matt has done. He has the confidence to help me and stand beside me. And through thick and thin, he's the reason that I've been successful.
So this comes from George Bashura from Shakedown the Thunder. What have you learned about yourself now that we've gotten away from Murph and Matt?
I think, you learn so much more through adversity. Winning, I think it just is completely different. But when you go through a year like we did, even in the championship year when we had all those injuries and so many ACLs, and it just seems as though every time you get going, you get a gut punch to kind of bring you back to reality. So I think the biggest thing I've learned, never be too high or too low. Just take it one day at a time. You can't look ahead, and you have to appreciate the moment. I think it's so important to enjoy the present, and I really had a hard time with that because we'd win a game and I'd immediately be focused on the next one. And I continually talk to the team about we've got to celebrate the victories, celebrate the wins, and I wasn't as good at doing that. I was a lot better this year because there were so few of them.
Chuck Freeby asked from WHME, Muffet, thinking back to where the program was when you took over 33 years ago, could you have ever seen it where it is now and the sport where it is now in the national picture?
Well, my goal when I came in was to have a sellout crowd. That was all I wanted. I wanted to have one time where we got the arena full. And of course, I was immediately wanted to get into the top 25. Never really thought about winning national championships at that point. I think I just wanted to get the program on track. And I will never forget 2001, January 15th, when I walked in the arena and one of the ushers said, "Did you hear it? It's a sellout." And I know my heart, the emotion I felt that day and the gratitude I felt for our fans coming out to support us like they did. And we have built such a great fan base. And I'm so thankful for the community that continues to support us.
Jack, what will you miss most about not having Coach just across the street at Rolf's?
Just the opportunity to exchange ideas, to talk. In these jobs, her job or my job, it is so important to have somebody around who will tell you you're wrong. And Coach was always willing to play that role for me. And I mean that in all seriousness, right? I mean, too often people will say, yeah, okay, they'll go along with you, right? And she and I had this conversation about building the assistant coach complement a few years ago. You just need that. And her honesty and her candor and her calling me out when I did something I shouldn't do, that's one of the reasons I'm so happy she's staying around. I know I'll still have that.
That's great. Speaking of candor, Coach, Denise Swarkan from Irish Illustrated is asking, is there anything you will not miss about the job?
I think those in-game interviews, it's the third quarter of the national championship. Mississippi State just went on a 10-0 run, and now is a great time to talk to me on the sideline about what I'm thinking about the rest of the game. So, Holly Rowe, got to say, I'm not going to miss it.
That's a great pivot point to Coach Ivey. Let's talk a little bit about Niele. And so, Coach, let's go to Tom Noe from the South Bend Tribune first. He's asking a simple but tough question. What's one word to describe Niele Ivey?
I would say charismatic. She is somebody that just people are attracted to. She's got a smile that lights up the gym. She's so fun to be around, and yet she can flip the switch and be serious and intense as anyone in the gym.
Jack, for your first question on Coach Ivey, from Lindsay Schnell at USA Today. What do you think Niele has learned in the NBA that's prepped her to move into a head coaching role at a premier institution like Notre Dame?
Well, I just think, I talked earlier about one of the great benefits of Niele is the continuity she provides. Getting away from for a year and seeing a different program, a different system, just having that comparison is in and of itself valuable. Of course, the degree to which they do anything in the NBA, break down film, do scouting reports, all of that will benefit her going forward. But I think the basic one is just seeing a different system.
Coach, any thoughts on how the NBA has helped Coach Ivey get ready for this role?
Well, I think it's been a phenomenal year of professional development. I think everything that she has done, learned, worked with all those different coaches, seen other coaches and how they react to each other. I know she's learned a ton. She would continually kind of update me weekly, like, oh, we have this great drill we're doing right now, or oh, you might like this late game set. So she's always sharing ideas, always thinking the game, and she has really, really developed amazing just a higher basketball IQ, because the NBA is at such a different level, and so she's learned a ton this year.
John Bryce from Blue and Gold asks, what do you think is the best big picture advice you can give Coach Ivey as she transitions into her new role? I'll ask both of you. I'll start with Coach McGraw.
I think the first thing is that you got to believe in yourself. I think Eleanor Roosevelt said, do what you want because you're going to be criticized anyway. So you want to look at what your ideas are and you want to follow through on them. You want to stay the course. Even when things get a little rocky, you have to be that voice and that one constant in the player's life that they're looking to you to lead, and you can always kind of count on them to follow you, but you have to be consistent in your message and you have to communicate it.
Jack?
You can't be Muffet McGraw. But do it your way, build your own program, build on this remarkable platform, but be true to yourself, be true to who you are.
That's what's great. Coach, Kevin O'Neill is wondering, what's the process of preparing an assistant coach, former student athlete of yours, to be a head coach like Niele?
You know, I think my job as head coach consistently is to get my assistants ready for a head coaching job throughout the season, and I give them a lot of responsibility. I give them a big voice. I want them to be able to stand up in front of the team and give the scouting report. They're in charge of the other team. You know, this is what we're going to do. How are we going to beat them? You set the game plan. You determine what defense we're going to play. I mean, I give them a ton of autonomy, and I let them really make big decisions. And we talk about them, of course. I like to try to get them out in front of the group as much as possible, and to make decisions in recruiting. There's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made, and sometimes it's easy when you're sitting down a chair and you get to suggest, and now you move over and you've got to really make a decision. So I think I get them ready for those decisions.
Great. Michelle Volpel from ESPNW asks a question that can deal with Coach Ivey due to her in the rivalry, the UConn rivalry, but she's asking, how proud are you of being a part of one of the greatest rivalries in college sports with UConn and the spotlight that brought to women's basketball for many years?
I have to say that is one thing I'm going to miss. I love that rivalry. I think it was great for women's basketball. It was something that when we came into the Big East years ago, Connecticut was the measuring stick. And now to be a team that people know that we're going to give them a great game. It's going to be a terrific, hard-fought battle. There's going to be a lot of intensity, and I loved all those moments. It was fun watching them recently on ESPN to see all those great wins that we had. And Niele being a part of that as a player and as a coach, I think it just gives her the confidence to know, and that's how you get into those rivalries. You have to have the confidence to know you can win.
Howard Megdal from High Post Hoops is asking, what is the message you have for incoming players?
Well, I think it's important that I build confidence. I think that's the most important job that we have as female coaches, because women struggle with their confidence a lot. So I think it's our job really to build them up, to give them the voice, to give them that opportunity to speak and really to listen to them. I think it's so important that you listen, but you have to call on them sometimes. They're not willing to talk unless you give them that opportunity. So I think the ones that are successful are the ones that are more confident coming in. Sometimes the expectation and the weight of the All-American and all the awards that they've won, it can really weigh heavy on some of the freshmen. So I think it's important that you set your expectations. You have a clear and concise picture of, these are the things that I need from you. This is the role I need you to play. This is your job. In order for us to win, this is what you have to do. But it really helps when you have leaders as juniors and seniors to help them.
Yeah, this is a follow-up from Matt Fortuna with The Athletic. Following up on the UConn question, have you heard from Gino since your news break?
No, well, I have to say, I'm sure I have a lot of text messages that I haven't gotten to yet. I'm sure he's one of them.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah. So from Angelo DiCarlo from Redeemer Radio, with Jack sitting right next to you, the question would be would you ever be interested in being in his role?
Absolutely not. I think that's one of the toughest jobs that is out there. That and the head football coach at Notre Dame, I think, are probably the two toughest jobs here. There's so much pressure, and there's so many different things that you have to manage. I think he's got an incredible vision. I think the way he can look and see what's coming down the road, he has been a great leader for Notre Dame, and he has done it so easily and so well, but certainly big shoes to fill. I wouldn't even want to try.
Great. Howard Megdale asks, Muffet, what is the single biggest thing you're looking forward to in the women's game over the next 10 years?
Well, I'm not happy with where the women's game is going right now. I think in terms of on the court, the playing rules and everything else, they're terrific. But I look at this transfer portal. I look at kids making commitments and not honoring them for 4 years. I think there's so many things, the negativity of recruiting. You saw what happened on the men's side with the money and people paying players. You know, we don't have that kind of money on the women's side, but eventually we're going to get to things like that. I think that it's happening in small ways right now. I think this break has been a great opportunity for us to look at recruiting and to say, is this where we want our game to go? What other things can we do? Do we have to be going out to these tournaments? Is there a more efficient way to do this? What can we change in recruiting?
Question that's coming in is centered around the fans. We know they're near and dear to your heart. So what is your message to the fans that have packed Purcell these last few years?
Well, I'm so glad I got a chance to talk with them after the North Carolina game, but I really just want to say thank you. I am so grateful for their support throughout the years, and I think it's easy to follow a team that's winning and going to the Final Four, but this year was a challenge for our fans, and they were there every single night, and it just made all of us feel so good to know that we had the backing of them, even when things weren't going well, because they know we're going to be back, and they know that things are going to get better, but for them to stick with us this year really meant so much to me. Thank you.
Great. We're last couple questions here. George Bashura from Shakedown the Thunder says, you've had so many teams, so many great memories. What have you believe that you are able to tell the players, and what is the message you want to tell them when you come back and have a larger group reunion later on down the road?
You know, the program has always been all about the players, and people ask, you know, how do you have success? What's the key to it? And I mean, it's good players. You look at what we have. I think we make our players better. That's something that we've always been good at because my staff has been so good, and the staff is such an important part of that. But it's all about recruiting, and you have to recruit the right people. You have to recruit people that are leaders, ones that are unselfish, ones that are a great Notre Dame fit. You want somebody that wants to win, that's going to be competitive. And I'm just so happy to see them now as they are in the WNBA, as they're off leading companies and doing so many great things out there, because these are women that came in and maybe weren't quite as willing to use their voice, and now I feel like they can stand up, and I love reading their Twitter when they're doing some things that are just great for women and great for them to stand up for. So I probably would really just want to say thank you to all of them.
Last two questions. Michelle Volpel from ESPNW talking about your successful players in the WNBA. You said you had a couple minutes ago you were done coaching, but is there any chance you would consider coaching in the WNBA if asked?
You know, I don't think so. The WNBA, I think, is a great league, and with Kathy Engelbert at the helm, I think we're going in a great direction. Terrific draft, I think most widely watched in 16 years in the league. So a lot of good things are happening there, and I think there's so much potential there. But I'm ready to move away from basketball. I've done it for over 40 years now, and looking forward to doing something else.
That's great. We'll end on a question away from the court here. Lots of people are asking that you're done with coaching. What happens next for Coach Muffet McGraw?
Well, I'm really open to so many things, and I'm sure Jack will be trying to keep me busy, and I will look forward to working with him. Teaching here at Notre Dame would be something that I would love to do. Continue to speak across the country. I've joined the Washington Speakers Bureau, so hopefully I'll be having an opportunity to do some of that. But anything that helps women, I'm going to be there.
Coach, Matt, Jack, thank you for taking the time today. Tomorrow, you'll be able to hear Coach, the new Karen and Kevin Keys head women's basketball coach at Notre Dame, Niele Ivey, at noon on UND.com. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in.